Well, welcome to Betting Weekly Extra Time, European edition. James Eastham was one of our standout handicappers last season, and the French football journalist is proving just as profitable to follow this campaign. And as far as the head-to-head challenge is concerned, he has swept all before him so far. But as he bids for the three-peat, today's opponent, this week's opponent, is someone from a slightly different background to what we've had so far. A reminder, this year it is winner stays on. Only the most profitable handicapper on the week will be invited back for the following show. Stay on, get paid, make everyone some money. Lose the challenge, you're at the back of the queue. Our handicappers only get paid if they're on the show. The idea is they work harder for your benefit and my benefit for that matter. You're with myself, Dan Roebuck, while senior handicapper Steve Wyss is also with me to give us his picks and assess the two tipsters selections who'll go head-to-head. Steve, we had James, who's back with us, of course, versus Daniele Fisichella last week, with James securing a win by, to coin a phrase, the barest of margins. It was a good challenge last week, Steve.
Yes, it certainly was. Good day to you, Dan. Good day to Will and James. A 0.02 margin. I don't think we'll probably get a closer one, will we, in terms of that? Of profit anyway. It went right to the last game. The Lazio pick looked good for Daniele. I think they were leading heading into the 85th minute, and they ended up losing the game. So that was the one pick that looked a really good selection, and I think we all really loved that pick. So it was a little bit of a surprise to see it go down so late. And both gentlemen were, let's be honest, we were pretty close to 4 out of 4 winners, because James got hit by a late goal as well in the PSG game. So the standard is very, very high. No one's had a loss yet in the contests. And, well done to James again for coming through.
Second successive week with a profit, as Steve was pointing out. And a shout out to Steve himself, who went 2 from 2 with successful picks in Spain and Germany last week. We will get Steve's selections at the end of the show. The show is 2.24 points profit in terms of the challenges this season, and the return on investment 18.67% so far. Head-to-head this week, you can see the guys are going to do battle here. Defending champion James Eastham, as we've mentioned, French football expert, writer and scout. 1 from 2 last week. When Lazio were leading at Lecce, as Steve has pointed out, as we were all across, I backed them as well. Did you fear the worst, Jay?
Yes, I did, Dan. I saw they were 1-0 up. I thought, oh, well, that's the end of that then. Defeated at last. And then I went back to the French League game, which was Lens versus Rennes, I think, last Sunday. Then tuned in to check the final score and saw that obviously Lecce had that amazing comeback. So I have to say I did feel for Daniele, because even though I didn't say it on the show last week, I looked at his 2 picks and thought, it's going to be difficult to beat those. And it is tough when you lose to 2 late goals like that. So yeah, last week was really, really close. And, I think beginning of the season, it can go one of 2 ways. You can either make the most of some really great prices, I tend to find at this time of year, or you have those teams who maybe aren't quite ready for the new season. Maybe that was the issue with Lazio last weekend. But as Steve says, I think that is one of the closest weeks we're probably going to have all season on the show.
Will White has been patient and waiting for us to introduce him. Professional football bettor. Will turned a profit on his debut on the Champions League show a few weeks ago. But this is something different, Will. Welcome to the head-to-head challenge. Have you been across the 2 previous shows so far this season?
Well, it's a pleasure to be on, lads. And I have been closely following the performance of all the tipsters. I was last season as well. Obviously, James is a particularly formidable opponent and has had a cracking start to the season. So I'm looking forward to getting involved and trying to get a new champion top of the leaderboard.
Any tactics? Myself and Steve were talking about tactics and whether challengers should play certain prices, certain lines. Have you got any tactics, or have you just looked for what you consider the best bets over the course of the weekend?
First of all, I didn't really fancy taking James on his home territory, so I haven't gone anywhere near Ligue 1. I've stayed away from that. My favourite league is LaLiga in Spain, so I've got 1 pick from there. Normally, my style is actually quite contrarian. I kind of like to go against public narratives, but both of my picks do actually have one narrative in common this week. So Yeah, I think I found an angle into a couple of games where the market's not really factored in this angle enough. And so, yeah, looking forward to talking about those.
Is it modelling with you? Is it subjective thinking? How do you come to your selections? Because a lot of our handicappers come at it very different ways. What are you looking for when you look at your selections?
Basically my baseline kind of modeling is pretty standard ratings based modeling, and then over the top of that I overlay player based ratings, and then look at the more kind of subjective human based factors. And essentially I'm trying to figure out whether those subjective factors have been over or under factored into the underlying market prices. Everybody these days seems to have a model, and the markets generally are priced by algorithms, and so you either get involved in the subjective kind of human-based angles up front and early in the week, like James was suggesting, or I like to wait until later in the week and perhaps look to take on some of those narratives in a more kind of contrarian way.
Interesting. Will's going to be back with us, incidentally, on Monday for a look at the Champions League playoff second leg, so we might delve into that a little bit more, but we're going to kick off the challenge now. The rules are simple, of course. 2 picks each from our challenges. Whoever makes the most profit with their picks stays on for next week's head-to-head battle. If the profit or the loss is the same, then the boss, Nigel Seeley, we've not had to call upon him just yet, thankfully, but he will decide who got the bad beat and declare a winner. As James is the defending champion, James is going to go first. Paris Saint-Germain-Lens is the game that we're looking at. This is 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Paris Saint-Germain minus 177. Last I looked, and again, prices could change. Put this running order together last night. Obviously, fluid markets and so on. We'll have up-to-date prices as we can on the graphics that you can see. Lens plus 440, draw plus 335. James, last week you talked about the reintroduction of Kylian Mbappe and the arrival of Ousmane Dembele, and we thought that they were going to start to lose. They didn't. They came on. I thought they made a big difference. I thought Dembele in particular looked good. And I would presume that they're both going to start this week. Talk us through your Paris Saint-Germain Lens pick.
Yes, I'm going on under goals here, Dan. Under 3 goals is available at minus 107. I agree with you on the game last week. We saw Mbappe and Dembele come on at halftime. The difference they made was immediate, wasn't it? We saw Mbappe within 15 or 16 minutes in the second half win a penalty, which he then got up and converted himself. And as you say, Dembele was lively as well. So what PSG were lacking in the first game and a half of this season, they have now got back by having those 2 players available. And it does look as though they will start this weekend, which obviously makes PSG a stronger attacking force. But I'm going under goals here, Dan, because I want to give you a stat on the 2 PSG games we've seen so far this season. The expected goals in PSG's 2 games so far are 0.68 against Lorient and then 0.83 against Toulouse last weekend. Now, that's not just PSG's XG. That is the XG on the game. So we've had 2 games so far this season where the XG on PSG games has been under 1 goal. And I think that tells us something about how they've played. It tells us something about the new style that we're going to see from them under Luis Enrique this season. Now, the counter factor is the one I've just mentioned. Mbappe and Dembele have only played for a quarter of the minutes so far this season from PSG. They do become a bit more expansive. They've got obviously much more penetration with those 2 players in the side. But the question for me looking at the game this week was, are we going to see PSG and a PSG game go from those sort of XG figures to a game with 4 or more goals in it this weekend? And the reason I say 4 more goals is with our pick, you can only lose if the game has 4 or more goals in it. With under 3 goals, if we have exactly 3 goals in this game, then you're going to get your stakes back. If we have no goals or 1 goal or 2 goals, then we're going to have a winning pick. And for me, that was my way of looking at it. I don't think we're going to see a PSG match go from the type of football we've had from them, both from them and their opponents in the first 2 matches, to a game which is going to have 4 goals in it, even taking into account the extra attacking quality that they will have with Mbappe and Dembele on the pitch. So when I saw the price on this around evens for under 3 goals, I was happy to take that. And on Lens, Dan, obviously they pushed PSG pretty close in the title race last year. They finished runners-up in League One, but crucially, they had the best defensive record in League One last season, and they do have the same goalkeeper, Brice Samba, and the same back three as last season. We've already seen PSG this season struggle against the back three when they faced Lorient on the opening day. That game finished 0-0. So I do think Lens are set up both in terms of their tactics and also in terms of their personnel to give PSG some trouble this weekend. So that was my thinking on this game. I think at the moment, yes, they're going to improve up front. Yes, there's going to be more of a threat with Mbappe on the pitch, but I think the chance to back a game, to have under 3 goals and to only lose if there are 4 goals or more at the moment on PSG, I'm very happy to take that.
Steve, do you agree with that, or do you think that the Dembele and Mbappe factor might swing it for overs players?
In terms of the goal line, it's one of those picks that I don't really have a strong opinion either way, really. I looked at this game and I was more drawn to the actual Asian handicap line on Lens or the draw double chance. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Lens got a result here, to be honest. PSG don't look that convincing right now. I wouldn't have even considered the goal line either way myself. But thinking about it, I'm not really too surprised by James's pick here. He's got a good record when he bets on unders in PSG games. Although I think you actually lost in this fixture last season, didn't you, James? In the reverse one.
Yes.
Every man and his dog was on the under in the Lens PSG fixture in January last year. It ended 3-1. So funny things can happen. Look, you got Dembele and Mbappe. If they're suddenly firing, then everyone's in trouble. It's on the unders. But I actually think there's a very good chance of exactly 2 goals in this game, or a push on the under 3. It would be a surprise if there's 4 or more goals. I've got to say that. So interesting game. I think Lens are certainly going to be worthy opposition here for PSG.
And just very briefly from you, thoughts on Paris Saint-Germain now at -335 for the title after dropping points in the first 2 games. Does it not matter at all as far as you two guys are concerned when it comes to the title race? Very quickly, Steve.
The problem is, who is going to be good enough to consistently beat them over 38 games? If someone could come out of that pack and get on a really good run, I mean, Monaco are currently 100% record with Brest. You can't trust Monaco, and Brest obviously not going to last the pace. So, look, PSG is still going to win the title, in my opinion.
James, quickly.
Yeah, very similar view. PSG, -335? What's that? 75% chance, 77% chance of winning the title, something like that. They've won 6 of the last 8. They've won 9 of the last 12. Yeah, that price is probably bang on the money, to be honest. I wouldn't touch it at all. I think, they probably will win the title, and there's nobody else in that pack that I would be supporting at the moment. Definitely not.
Okay, pick is in the book. Under 3 goals at -107 for James in that Paris Saint-Germain Lens game. Let's get Will's first selection for the challenge. Then we go to the Bundesliga. This is 9:30 a.m. Eastern. On Sunday, Mainz against Eintracht Frankfurt here. Mainz at +148, Eintracht Frankfurt +170. I think Eintracht Frankfurt, as we recalled this in action in the Conference League. Just, Will, how much notice do you take of European form when it comes to domestic action at this very early stage of the season? Is it something you look at, you consider? Do you not consider it? What's your sort of take on the fact that teams at this very early stage with qualifiers might have a different type of focus?
I pay a lot of attention in the group stages onwards. During qualification, it's definitely a factor, and both of my picks actually have this angle in common. Normally, Bundesliga is not one of my favorite leagues. I find it quite difficult to figure out the angles in Bundesliga, but I couldn't resist this pick. Quite a few angles I quite like here, but yeah, one of them is some consideration for the Conference League qualification. There's some other stuff going on at Eintracht Frankfurt that I'll get into that also support this bet.
Okay, come on then. What's your pick? What's the first pick for the challenge, Will? What do you like in this game?
So the pick is Mainz on the draw no bet line, which is the +0 goal Asian handicap line at -117. I would have liked it around -110 a bit more, but unfortunately it slipped a little bit. And I think that is probably because of the Conference League qualification campaign. As well as the impending transfer saga around Eintracht Frankfurt's star player, the 21 goal in all competition last season, Colin Mwani, who is being coveted by PSG. So I think they've placed an offer of 85 million euros, I believe. and Eintracht are looking for 100 million. He has started the opening Bundesliga match and today's Conference League qualification game. I'm not really sure what that means for the weekend, but it's there's definitely a question mark around his availability. Model rating, so the boring stuff, let's get that out of the way first. My model actually does have this line about right without any considerations for the Conference League qualification or the Colomwani saga. Eintracht did lose quite a few of their starting players over the summer, so Kamada and Dicker, to name three. Contrary to that, Mainz have a relatively settled squad, retaining most of their starting 11 players from last season. This game last season, Mainz went off a similar price on the Asian line. It was the same line, the draw no bet line in this fixture, and there were no kind of cup complications that day. The most interesting thing for me in this fixture is last weekend at home to Darmstadt, there was a strong move in the Asian market against Eintracht. They drifted from, I believe they opened on the minus 1.25 goal line, drifted to the -1 goal line. Strong money for Darmstadt there, newly promoted Darmstadt. And Eintracht were fairly unconvincing in a 1-0 win there. Conversely, Mainz were supported in Asia away to Union Berlin last weekend. They did lose 4-1, but that wasn't really a true reflection of the game. Mainz won the XG battle despite losing the game 4-1 and arguably with a better team. So I guess overall, I don't think the market is discounting enough the efforts of Eintracht away in Bulgaria. It's a long journey there and back. And they could be unsettled by the transfer speculation around Colomwani, who may not even start the game anyway. So I quite like the spot here. Draw no bet line, so stakes refunded if it's a draw at -117.
Yeah, some interesting narratives when it comes to Eintracht Frankfurt. Steve, your thoughts on this one? Draw no bet, Mainz?
Really interesting pick. Will has done something here which I love doing myself. I like betting against teams who have played in Europe on a Thursday night, especially away from home, even though it's only a qualifying round. The travel and everything can make a big difference. He kind of meant the sheer mention of Union Berlin there actually made me angry. That team, I said it in the outright preview show. Every single result.
You're not a fan, are you, at all, Steve? You've got a real downer on it.
Every single time, the result is never a fair reflection when Union Berlin are involved. It was all sorts of madness was going on. I had a look at this game. There was 2 penalties missed by the same player for Mainz. Ludovic Ajorc. I wouldn't have let him take the second penalty. Let's just say that. Mainz, they're one of them teams who have got to be, of all the 16 teams in the Bundesliga, 18 teams, sorry, I probably know least about them because they're sort of the definition of like your sort of mid-table mediocrity, obscurity side, really. That's what you expect of them, who are going to win their fair share of home and away games. I don't have a really strong opinion either way on the pick. I'm not massively in love with it, but I certainly don't hate it. You know, it's one of those which could go either way. And, a couple of things. Frankfurt away from home last year were not great. Their away record was very, very mixed. And I just wonder if that could be a potential issue for them. One other thing that really concerned me is I noticed that Robin Koch did start for them last week. And having watched him at Leeds over the last couple of years, then, well, I think any attack is going to be feasting potentially on that one. So, I mean, it certainly wouldn't surprise me if Mainz won the game.
That's Will's first pick. We've got 2 more picks from our challenges to come. We're going to take a slight deviation, and we're going to get Steve's best outsider over the course of this weekend. Steve, this is your hot dog. Week 1, not so good week 2, as I recall. What about week 3? You've gone to Spain.
Yeah, the dog last week was like the stone cold dog, wasn't it? It was Strasbourg were absolutely terrible, but 1-1 so far on that this year. I'm heading to Monday night. I'm Rayo Vallecano against Atletico Madrid in La Liga, and I like the home team on straight on the nose, plus 335 to win. And Monday night matches are interesting. I feel like you can get some really big public plays on Monday night because there's not as many matches to bet on. Will might actually know a bit more about this than me. I'm sure he's following the market moves a lot, and these sort of things can happen. I could see them become a big public play here, Atletico Madrid. So I'm actually going to go against them. At the moment, Bet Rivers have the top price in the world on Rayo Vallecano at plus 335 on the money line. There was quite a lot of people I knew who were on the downer about Rayo this year because they lost their manager to Bournemouth. And they're a club that I think are fantastically run, quite a small team from the suburbs of Madrid who constantly punch above their weight. You know they're well run. They've started well, though, this year. 2-0 wins against Almeria and Granada away from home, dominated both fixtures. And now they're back at home here for the first one of the season. Get me bang up for it. It's a local derby game. And Atletico you can get them on a bad night. They can be quite inconsistent. They only won half their away games in the last couple of seasons. That's why they're minus 107 here. There's no guarantee they'll get a result in this fixture. They're not a team I typically watch very often. I don't really like their style. And I don't really bet on their games that often either because they're often involved in a lot of unders. So, I looked at their transfers this summer. It was a bit underwhelming. Typical Atletico, really. The manager makes it work, doesn't he? But I really think here at plus 335, Rayo Vallecano are underrated. I think there's this perception that now they've lost their manager, that they're going to be terrible. Like I said, on Monday night, I feel like there's going to be big expectations on Atletico Madrid. 0-0 draw against Betis last week. I think they had an XG of less than 0.4. Again, it's typical of their style. But and that is a tougher game in theory, but it's not an easy place to go. So I really like this dog. A big price, biggest price I've advised yet, and you're taking a risk when you back in anyone at plus 335. But I certainly think they're worth a proverbial nibble, as we always say on this show.
Yeah, sounds like a good one. I just want to come to Will, just very briefly, just get your thoughts. Steve was talking about earlier. He's gone to Bournemouth. A lot of chat about him, about the style of football. When it comes to sort of modelling and so on, do you just think, well, Rayo, I forget everything from last season, or do you only take 75%, or do you wait until there's form in the book? When it's such a charismatic manager with such a certain style, how does that affect what you look at when it comes to a side like Rayo?
I tend to not really form opinions for myself. What I like to do is get feedback from the market and see if the Asian money comes one way or another, and that will inform my view. I really like this bet, actually, although I'm hoping that the public money will come for Atletico on day of game. Rayo have been impressive so far this season. They haven't missed a beat. 2-0 away wins. The markets have also liked them in both games, kind of pushed them from plus money on the draw no bet to minus money on the draw no bet in both games, which they won convincingly. So, yeah, Rayo are a team I want to be with this year, and good pick from Steve, I think.
James's second pick next as the challenge continues. Here we go. Rennes, Le Havre. Rennes minus 124. Last I looked, Le Havre plus 280 again. Check Bet Rivers for the latest prices. A word on Jeremy Doku, first of all. James, has he left? Do we know the situation?
No, he's not left, but it looks like he's going to Manchester City. The move is, from what we can see at the moment, lined up. It's just a case of finishing all the details of it. So he may play no part this weekend in this Rennes game, which would be a blow. Listen,
I'm going to say, does it make a difference to your pick here? Because I know what you just tell us your selection and whether A, you'd be concerned if he doesn't start, B, you factor it in, and C, you think the line might move even more in your favour. So have a little bit more on.
Yeah, possibly. So the pick is on Rennes on the Asian handicap here, Dan. Minus 1.25 goal start available at plus 100. So if Rennes win the game by just a single goal, then you're going to lose half of your stakes. If they go on and win by 2 or more goals, then you're going to win with your full stakes. Would Doku leaving change my pick? Or let's just say, let's say he's not left but plays no part this weekend, which may happen as well. Not really, to be honest. It wouldn't make much difference to me. I'm a big fan of Jeremy Doku. I think he is a player with elite potential. I can see why Manchester City want him. Not the finished article, but a player with kind of a rare set of skills, actually, in European football. His dribbling ability is very, very good. And great potential to develop further. And he's somebody who's been marked out for the top since he was about 14, 15 years old, is Jeremy Doku. So he would be a loss for Rennes if he went. He does give them something different in attack, that ability that he's got to beat players one-on-one and offer penetration on the wings. But I'd still be happy with this pick, Dan, even if he plays no part in the game. Let's remember, Rennes have already actually signed the replacement for Jeremy Doku in Ludovic Blas, who was bought from Nantes over the summer to be the replacement. Different type of player, attacking player. He would possibly be more comfortable long-term in the number 10 role rather than out wide. But putting all that to one side, I think Rennes have got enough here to win by a couple of goals anyway, even without Jeremy Doku, because they've got such big attacking threat from lots of different angles. We saw that on the opening home game of the season when they beat Metz 5-1. Metz, of course, one of the other promoted side. In League One, they're facing Le Havre here, who were promoted as well. So there's plenty of evidence that Rennes can go on and win this game comfortably, for me, even without Jeremy Doku. Going back to our season preview show, Steve flagged up what a fantastic home record Rennes have got over the last 2 seasons. I think they won 14 and 15 at home out of 19 in each of the last 2 seasons. So fantastic home record. Amin Gouiri has already got on the score sheet this season. Arnaud Kaliwendo has got on the score sheet this season. So their 2 main goal scorers have already shown they've got a bit of form. And crucially for this pick, Dan, is something we flagged up when I backed Rennes to beat Metz on the handicap in the previous show. It's the fact that they have that ability to score goals off the bench late in games. We saw that when they won 5-1 against Metz. Ibrahim Salah came on and got 2 goals late on in that game. They do have enough quality to turn a 1-goal winning margin into 2 or even 3-goal winning margin. And that for me is crucial about this pick, and potentially all season on Rennes. They're not a side who sit back on a 1-goal lead. Anybody that watches them at home regularly knows that. They tend to keep going. They want to win well. They're pushed by very, very passionate fans when they play at home. So when I saw the price on the handicap here, Dan, minus 1.25, even money at plus 100, I'm happy to take that because, as I say, you fully expect Rennes to win here. And if they win by just 1 goal, then, okay, you lose half your stakes. But I think it's worth the risk of losing that half stake because the chances of winning with a full stake with Rennes playing the way that they do are pretty good. So, yeah, that was my pick on the game. It's Rennes minus 1.25 on the Asian handicap, and that's available at plus 100.
Even money. Steve, I know you like this one as well, don't you?
Yeah, I really do like this one. All over it, really. I think it's a no-brainer bet. Rennes are brilliant at home. And I thought I'd add something about Le Havre, actually. And I do think they're a little bit overrated, actually, by the books this season. Perhaps based on their record in Ligue 2 last season. They only actually lost 2 away games last season. They had the fantastic defensive record in the second tier. But already... And I said this on the previous show outright that there's no way they can rely on that defence at this level. It's just a massive step up. They've already conceded 2 goals against Montpellier and then Brest last week. They were lucky to get a draw against Montpellier in week 1. And I really am struggling to make the case for Le Havre here against Rennes. It should be. This is the sort of team that Rennes just have a habit of eating for breakfast. And even if they concede a goal, they're well capable of covering the handicap. So I think it's a fantastic pick.
And if you really want to know why this is the max bets, I sound like one of those things you get on a Twitter feed where it's like boom and all these sort of Bet365 rubbish sort of fake slips comes up to win 20 grand. But the reason why this is triple boom max bet is because Will also likes it. Will?
I love the bets. I got my picks in earlier than James in the WhatsApp group and didn't pick Rennes. Kind of kicking myself now. The reason I didn't pick Rennes, there are plenty of reasons why they're a great bet here. One that hasn't been mentioned is actually Le Havre. Last season in Ligue 2 were mid-table chance creation. So like Steve says, they relied upon their defence to get them promotion. And I just don't think that'll cut it in Ligue 1. I wouldn't be surprised to see Rennes drift on day of game. They drifted massively against fellow promotion Metz. And it was a drift that I think got the whole market super confused. They drifted from the same line, the -1.25 line, almost to the -3/4 line. So it was almost a half a goal drift, which is quite something. So my plan of attack here is to wait to game day and hope that the Asian market comes for Le Havre and look to back Rennes on the -1 goal line as opposed to the -1.25.
Now, obviously, you are a professional bettor, but this is the Betting Weekly head-to-head European show. So I just want to get this right. If you've got your thousands on for Rennes on the handicap, but obviously that would mean James would have a winner and he might knock you out. You know, are you really cheering on James's winning selection here? How does that work? Is it money or is it the glory?
It's an emotional edge in a way. I think my ego is going to get the better of me and not get over the line. Maybe a 1-goal win, then I'll push. James will have a half loss on his.
best of both worlds.
Yeah.
We've got one more pick to come from Will. We go to Spain. You said it's one of your favourite leagues, La Liga. This is Valencia versus Osasuna. Valencia just shy of even money. Osasuna plus 320. Flirted with relegation last season, Valencia. They're a story club. Haven't been in the Segunda since the mid-80s, but they have, well, I'm only looking at the results. I've not seen the games or any of the metrics, but it seems like they've got the right formula under Ruben Baraja this season. They're 2 wins from 2. Will, talk us through your selection here.
Yeah, there's definitely a different vibe around Valencia with club legend Ruben Baraja in charge. He's really refreshed the starting 11. Edson Cavani, Justin Kluivert and the likes have all been sold. And he's brought in kids from the academy, Fran Perez, Diego Lopez. Pepe Lu was bought from Levante in the off season, and Andre Almeida, who is a very, very talented midfielder. So there's a really strong vibe around Valencia. The boring stuff model, my ratings-based model, makes this line about right. So I'm going to be betting Valencia to win the match at -104. I believe the Asian line of -0.5, which is the same proposition, was -106. So a couple of cents better on the 1x2. Similar to the Mainz pick, really, I don't think the market's factoring in the efforts that Osasuna are going to have to go to playing at home to Club Brugge in European qualification. They're playing as we speak. They started their full strength 11, their once de gala, as they like to say in Spain. And their manager, Jagoba Arrasate, likes to rotate during fixture congestion, and he seems to prioritize cup competitions over the league when that happens. So I'm expecting to see the bench players from Osasuna come and play and start this game. What I will say is their bench players are used to playing and getting quite a few first team minutes, and their record last season in circumstances involving heavy rotation wasn't too bad, actually. For a mid-table team, I believe they played 10 games. They lost 5 of them, won 2 and drew 3, which isn't actually that bad. The market does tend to see the Osasuna rotation coming, but I just don't think it has here. And I don't really know why. Maybe it's because it's so early in the season and the market's kind of forgotten that Arrasate likes to rotate heavily. I just think it's just two very contrasting two contrasting vibes. You've got on the one hand a very young, fresh, hungry Valencia squad that started the season very strongly, winning away at Sevilla, at home to was it Las Palmas? Yeah, at home to Las Palmas. And then you've got an Osasuna team that's perhaps prioritising European qualification. Overall, I'd probably value that. My player-based model's telling me about a quarter of a goal. I should be further downgrading Osasuna here, which would take it to a fair value of around -3/4 goal handicap. So that would equate to -130-ish on the money line. So I think there's quite a lot of value here on Valencia, and I'm very happy to back them to win the game at -104.
Oh, good reasoning. And yeah, you're right about Osasuna. Rory Barlow, one of our Spanish handicappers who went to Osasuna, speak to the people there, and they were all out for the Copa del Rey last season, got beaten in the final by Real Madrid, but they wanted to get to Europe. They saw it as a real feather in their cap as a club. They really wanted that. Steve, what's your thoughts on Valencia at -104?
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row that Valencia have been an official pick on the show. They They cashed for me last week against Las Palmas, and I think they're actually a club where the most important factor when you're assessing them is the feel of how things are going, off the field more than on it. Sometimes the fans are actually happy, they're content, and it gives them an awful lot more. They're a dangerous club, actually, when they're in a good frame of mind. I actually believe that this line should be closer to minus 0.75 as well. Also, soon at the time of recording, they're involved against Club Brugge in that Conference League qualifier. That's a tough matchup. Club Brugge are a very young and energetic side. I think they'll be quite tired heading into this game. If there is rotation, obviously you're going to be losing out on some of your starters. This looks a really solid pick, and unlike last week where I was on the minus 0.75 line and I only half won, 1-0 again, and Will's fully cashing here. So I could see that 1-0, 2-0 Valencia. I think there's a good chance they win 2-0.
We've completed the challenge in terms of the picks. We will confirm them for you shortly, but we've got Steve's best bets to come next. We've got some leans as well, but I need to rattle through some of these. Let's get Steve's 2 picks for the weekend. We're in Germany and we're in France. Steve, for your best bets, talk us through.
I've gone with 2 picks here. Again, official picks for the show. In the Bundesliga, I'm going with Wolfsburg plus 0.25 Asian handicap. That's at minus 120. And then in France, going with Montpellier against Rennes over 2.75 goals at the same price. Start with the Wolfsburg one. And I had this game as a pick'em, actually. I think the fair line's more on a draw no bet handicap, really. It was interesting for those who watched the outright Bundesliga show. I think RJ, he might be onto something about Cologne in terms of
relegation.
I looked at this squad and I worry where the goals are going to come from for Cologne. I really do. And they put up a good fight last week against Dortmund, but whenever they were presented with a chance, they just couldn't take it. And they do concern me long term. It's a really weird head-to-head with these 4. I'm not into head-to-heads, but the last 4 meetings have all been won by the away team, which is interesting. Wolfsburg got off to a winning start last week against Heidenheim 2-0. They probably haven't beaten much there, but they dominated the match. Jonas Wind with a goal or 2. And they look quite good. Cologne, for me, like I say, where the goal's coming from. No attacker scored more than 7 goals for them last year. That was Stefan Tigges, who's out injured right now. They're one of the few teams who underachieved their XG last year in the Bundesliga. That really takes some doing. So I really like Wolfsburg, who actually had a really strong away record last year. They won 7 games away last year on a plus a quarter handicap. So even if there's a draw, then we'll win half of the pick there. I think they've had some good signings in the summer as well. Lovro Meyer and Myler as well have made up for a couple of departures. So Wolfsburg on the handicap. And then into France, and I think James has got a couple of opinions about this game. Montpellier against Rennes. I don't think it's a tremendous value bet. The goal line I'm taking is over 2.75, and it's a little bit disappointing. I was hoping for a 2.5 line, really, but I'm just so confident about the goals flowing here that I had to take it. There's a lot of attacking ability at the moment on both sides. It's clear they're in a good phase going forward. Akor Adams has been a revelation since coming to Montpellier. I can't believe he's plus 180 to score any time again. I flagged him up last week at a big price and he scored. Rams, if we can just get Oumar Diakite finally scoring or even taking a shot would help. He's a striker playing up front and he's plus 450 again. His moment will come. I tell you, Oumar Diakite, watch out for him. But Rams have got players like Junior Ito going really well. Marshall Manetzi as well is getting some goals. So just 2 offensive-minded teams there on the South Coast. Over 2.75 goals at minus 124. Made a lot of sense to me. Like I say, not amazing value with the goal line, but I'm just so confident here that I'm happy to strike.
Those are the official picks from Steve. If you followed him last week, of course, you cashed them both. We've got some leans. We need to be quick with these not official selections. James, you've gone down the shots on target prop bets here with a couple of selections in France. Talk us through your leans for the week.
Yeah, this is a great market, Dan, that Bet Rivers offers that very few bookmakers offer. So it's great fun looking through the prices here and seeing who's available just to have 1 or 2 shots on target. And you can look at the form of these players and find some good prices. So my first pick this weekend is Kefren Turam of Nice to have over 0.5 shots on target for Nice this weekend against Lyon. He's available at plus 150 48. So for those who haven't watched Nice this season or maybe last season, they play a 4-3-3 with Thuram in midfield. And he is the one midfielder who has license to get forward and have shots on target. He's a fantastic sight when he's carrying the ball forward and increasingly gets into those shooting positions. And I think at plus 148, just to have one shot on target, it's great value. He had 2 shots on target last weekend against Lorient. And he's playing a Lyon side this weekend who conceded 8 shots on target last weekend. So everything for me is lined up here for Thuram to be a good value pick there at plus 148. And my other pick to have the same thing, over 0.5 shots on target. So you just need 1 shot on target for this to cash, is Moussa Altamari of Montpellier. So this is the game that Steve has talked about. I agree with Steve. I think we've got 2 very attacking sides on show here in Montpellier and Reims. You just need 1 shot on target here from Moussa Altamari and you'll cash. And this is a guy who he managed 3 shots on target last weekend in Montpellier's 4-1 win against Lyon, scoring 2 goals. And he managed 2 shots on target on match day 1 when they drew 2-2 against Le Havre. So Altamari, new signing, new face for us in France, has started the season in really positive attacking form. And if he manages a shot on target this weekend, then this will cash. And at home, I thought the price here was great value. So that's at Altamari at plus 104.
Will, you've got a lean for us. It's in Italy, and it's a game that nearly made your selections, your official selections for the head-to-head challenge, but it didn't because the price moved just a little bit. Talk us through your lean.
Yeah, my lean is on Genoa plus a goal away to Lazio in Serie A. I think the line opened around minus 110, since it's moved to minus 120, so it's slightly outside of my range at the moment. It's a model-based play, basically. My model makes Lazio minus 3/4 of a goal, so there's almost a quarter of a goal price difference here. Genoa, newly promoted from Serie B last season. They were probably the strongest of the 3 promoted teams, lost 4-1 last weekend at home to Fiorentina, but only conceded 0.99 on the XG. So I think they underperformed their expected goals quite significantly. Asian money that day for Genoa. Lazio have lost Milinkovic-Savic, which really was the heartbeat of their team last season, a big box-to-box threat, and they weren't impressive, as we've already talked about, away to Lecce on the opening day. There was also Asian money for Lecce that day. So it's a model-based play, Asian money on my side as well, and I fancy Genoa to not lose by more than a goal.
And finally, one from Steve. We go to the Bundesliga. I asked him for it last night. He wouldn't tell me. He just said, I've got one in Bochum versus Dortmund. But I presume you're opposing Bochum somehow, Steve.
Yeah, you absolutely guessed that one right, Dan. I was really close to having this as an official pick, but we had Bochum on the show last week. Over 3.5 goals is close to even money here. Bochum are just terrible. Defensively, they're a disaster. They lost 5-0 last week against Stuttgart, which pleased me, but they were even worse than I expected. I think they've got massive problems. The only thing that put me off here, it's a local derby, so they might be up for it a bit more. Weird results can happen. Another player in this game, Sebastian Haller, anytime scorer, plus 115 against the worst defense in the Bundesliga, perhaps right now. That's a top price worldwide from Bet Rivers. They are really dangling the carrot this week, Dan, with some plays.
Great stuff. And finally, let's just remind everyone, head-to-head challenge between James and Will. James, remind us of your 2 picks for the challenge.
First pick is on the PSG versus Lens game. I'm going under 3 goals at minus 107. And the second pick is Rennes on the Asian handicap. That's minus 1.25 against Le Havre, and that's at plus 100.
Will, 2 picks from you for the challenge.
First in Bundesliga, I'll be on Mainz on the draw no bet or plus 0-0 Asian handicap at minus 117. So that stakes refunded on the draw. And in La Liga, I'll be supporting Valencia to win the match on the 1x2 at minus 104.
Steve, who's your money on? Who's going to win the challenge? Can James go 3 for 3? Will we have a new champion next week?
Okay, I'm going to have to predict James, aren't I? Otherwise, he's going to keep making me look daft each week. The last 2 weeks, I've predicted against him. So, I mean, I do love that Rennes pick, I must say. But what's interesting with the selections from the boys here, there's some really sort of there's different permutations. There's pushes in play. There's half losses in play.
It's difficult, isn't it, to work it out? You can't just say, but it's a different ball game this week. We've
the
upped the ante a
previous
bit.
two contenders against James have had what I call all or nothing selections. You either win or lose with them. But that interesting draw no bet pick on Mainz might just make the different scenario at the end of it. But I'm gonna, James, I can't keep predicting against him, can I? Because I'm gonna look down.
Kiss of death. Kiss of death from Steve.
I know. James is like, damn, you've cursed me now, Steve, haven't you?
Well, Will's going to be back regardless next week. Not necessarily, he might be on this show, but he's definitely going to be in our Champions League show. It will be one of Will and James next week up against RJ, incidentally. Many thanks to Steve, to James, to Will for your company over the course of the last 45 minutes or so. Good luck to one and all. We'll keep across the scores. We usually put our thoughts up on Twitter over the course of the weekend to see how it is going, and we'll declare a winner once it's mathematically impossible for one not to catch the other, or vice versa. That does wrap it up for today. We are back next week, as we say. RJ is going to be the challenger. It will be versus James or Will. Make sure you stay across all of the Bet Rivers content at Because We Win. And from all of us for now, though, it is goodbye.
Cheers, Dan.